The
So,
first time
you
I
think this
noticed
old
her
girl
wasn't
still
when
has
she
some life in
smiled.
her?
It was
With a
when she
little
didn't.
love, she'll be
She was
back on the
standing
road in no
outside her
time.
car in the courtyard of the old apartment complex, squinting at the front tire like it had personally offended her. The sun caught the streaks of gray in her hair, and for a second, she looked more like a painting than a person. Something caught halfway between strength and fatigue. I was supposed to be taking out the trash. Instead, I asked, "Need a hand?" She didn't turn right away. "You know brakes?" "A little," I lied. That was how it started, not with a spark, but with a socket wrench and silence. Her name was Sana. She owned the building, lived in the corner unit that always smelled faintly of coffee and rain. I'd been renting for 3 weeks, and we'd exchanged maybe 5 words before that afternoon. But as I leaned over her car, grease on my hands and her voice quiet behind me, something shifted in the air. It wasn't romantic. Not yet. Just aware. The brakes weren't actually broken, just old. Like most things around here. She stood beside me, arms crossed, watching. "You're too patient for your age," she said finally. I smiled without looking up. "Or you're just too fast." That was when she laughed, low, restrained, like she didn't want to. "We'll see about that." Later that evening, I saw her again in the building's hallway, balancing a box of groceries. I reached out automatically. She hesitated, then let me take it. Her apartment was warm. Books on the floor, a small record player humming something old. She poured coffee into mismatched mugs and asked about my work. I told her I taught art classes part-time. She said she used to paint a long time ago. There was a quietness between us that didn't feel awkward, just heavy with the kind of things neither of us said out loud. That night, I found myself sitting by the window of my place, looking down at her car parked under the streetlight. The newly oiled brakes reflected faintly in the glow. My phone was open to a half-typed message. "You make this place feel less temporary." I didn't send it. I just watched the light from her kitchen flicker off, one room at a time. The next morning, she caught me in the courtyard again. "Brakes feel smooth," she said, running a hand over the steering wheel. "Good to know I didn't kill you," I said. "Not yet." She paused, then tilted her head, her eyes meeting mine for a beat too long. "But can you handle my speed?" The line should have been a joke, light, teasing. But something about the way she said it stayed with me all day. It wasn't just her voice. It was the quiet challenge behind it, like she already knew I'd say yes eventually. That night, I checked my phone again. A notification blinked from an unknown number. Just 2 words. "Coffee tomorrow?" No name, no emoji, just her rhythm clipped, deliberate. And somehow I knew it was her. The next morning, she was already at the cafe down the street when I arrived. She'd chosen the corner seat, the one facing the window, her coat folded neatly beside her, her hands wrapped around a cup of tea she hadn't yet drunk. "Didn't think you'd show," she said, without looking up. "You texted me," I reminded her. "True," she murmured. "Still, I half expected you to overthink it." I smiled. "You seem like someone who expects disappointment." That made her glance up. "You'd be surprised how often I'm right." We talked like people who didn't know if they were supposed to be talking, cautious, careful. The air between us kept shifting. Familiar one second, uncertain the next. She told me her husband had died 6 years ago. Quietly, like she was saying something that no longer demanded sympathy. "Heart failure," she said. "He was younger than me. Everyone said I'd remarry quickly. I didn't." "Why not?" I asked before I could stop myself. Her eyes flickered toward the window. "Because sometimes you get used to the silence." I didn't know what to say to that, so I didn't. Later, back at the apartment building, she called me over again. Her sink was leaking. The kind of errand that doesn't really need help, but she let me fix it anyway. While I crouched beneath the counter, she leaned against the counter above, sipping something warm. "You remind me of my son's friend," she said suddenly. "He was about your age when he used to come around, always fixing things just to avoid talking about what was really wrong." I laughed softly. "And what's wrong with me?" She tilted her head. "You don't text people back, but you keep receipts in your phone gallery." You think too much about what things mean. Should have stung, but it didn't. It just felt seen. When I was done, she thanked me and reached out. Just a small touch on my wrist, brief and unthinking. But my pulse stuttered. Her hand stayed for half a second longer than it should have. Then she pulled away. You should send your receipts to the owner. Maybe she'll give you a discount. She might, I said quietly. But she's unpredictable. That made her smile again. That reluctant, tired smile that always felt like an apology and a dare at the same time. As I left, she called after me. Don't stay up too late, hero. I turned. Why not? Because you'll start thinking things that don't need thinking. Her voice was calm, but her fingers tightened around the edge of the sink as she said it. That night, I couldn't stop replaying the way her hand had brushed mine. Accidental, maybe, but warmer than it should have been. It started raining again. Not the kind that ruins plans. Just enough to make everything smell like metal and memory. She knocked on my door that night. A soft, uncertain knock. Your mail, she said when I opened it, holding out a small envelope. Was in my box by mistake. It was an excuse. We both knew it. Her hair was damp, clinging to her neck. A faint tremor in her voice. Not nerves, exactly. Something closer to awareness. You could have waited till morning, I said. I could have, she replied. Then, almost whispering, but I was awake. I made tea because doing something felt safer than saying something. She walked slowly around my apartment, eyes catching on small things. A half-finished sketch, an empty mug, a photo turned face down on the shelf. You always leave things unfinished, she said. Maybe I just like having reasons to stay. She didn't respond, just looked at me. A long, unreadable look that made the room feel smaller. There was a quiet between us. The kind that doesn't break, it thickens. I asked if she missed painting. Sometimes, she said, tracing the rim of her cup. But I don't like starting things I won't finish anymore. The air shifted then, too close, too open. She moved to the window. The rain had turned heavier, tapping against the glass like impatient fingers. You shouldn't look at me like that, she said. How am I looking? Like you're trying to understand something you shouldn't. Her reflection in the window was softer than her voice. Eyes half-lit, jaw tense. I don't mean to, I said quietly. It just happens. A knock broke the silence. The neighbor, Mr. Khalid, calling out through the door. Sana, you dropped your keys earlier. She froze, her hand still on the window, her breath caught between sentences. I opened the door, took the keys, thanked him. When I turned back, she'd already stepped away, her composure neatly folded back in place. I should go, she said. You don't have to. I do. She reached for her coat. I moved closer, not close enough to touch, but enough to feel the heat off her shoulder. Her hand trembled slightly as she slipped it through the sleeve. I saw it and she saw me seeing it. For a second, maybe two, we both forgot to look away. Her voice broke the stillness first. Don't make this complicated. I'm not sure I know how not to. Something flickered in her eyes then. Fear, maybe. Or want. Hard to tell the difference anymore. She stepped past me, her shoulder brushing mine. Not by accident. Not this time. At the door, she paused, the rain still steady outside. Next time, she said without turning. Don't fix anything you can't afford to break. And then she was gone. It was late afternoon when she asked me to walk with her. No reason. No pretext. Just, you're always inside. Come out for once. We walked through the quiet streets behind the complex, the air thick with the smell of rain that hadn't yet fallen. She carried her umbrella even though the sky was still undecided. For a while we didn't talk. Just the sound of our footsteps, soft against the uneven pavement. You've been avoiding me, I said finally. She didn't deny it. You noticed. How could I not? I thought that's what you wanted. I never said that. No, she said. But you stopped looking at me like you used to. Her voice was calm, but her hand tightened on the umbrella handle until her knuckles paled. We stopped by the small park, 2 empty benches facing the cracked basketball court. She sat first, exhaling like the weight she carried was too old to set down. "I saw you talking to that girl from your art class," she said after a long pause. "The one with the bright scarf." I blinked. "You mean Layla? She's just a student." I didn't say she wasn't. Something sharp flashed across her expression, then vanished. "It's funny," she added softly. "I used to hate being jealous. Thought I was past that kind of foolishness." The silence that followed wasn't comfortable this time. Pressed down, thick and close. "You're not foolish," I said. "Then what am I?" I hesitated. "Human." That made her laugh short, brittle. "I don't get to be just human with you. I'm the landlady. The woman who should know better." She looked at me then, directly, no masks left. And for the first time I saw it, the fear under her restraint. Not of me, of herself. "I don't know what you think this is," she whispered. "But it can't be that." "Then what is it?" Her eyes flickered. "Something I'll regret if I don't end soon." "But you haven't ended it." She smiled, tired, aching. "That's the problem." The rain began. Slow drops that patterned the pavement, soft enough to ignore, heavy enough to notice. I reached for her umbrella. She let me take it. Our fingers brushed, and the moment held. Fragile, suspended. "I keep telling myself," she said, her voice barely audible, "that I'm only drawn to your kindness, that it's just comfort. But sometimes when you look at me—" She trailed off. Her breath caught. I wanted to say something, anything, but all that came out was her name. "Sana." She looked up, the faintest tremor in her jaw. "Don't." The umbrella slipped from my hand. The rain filled the space between us. And for a heartbeat we were both still, too close, too aware, too far past pretending. Then she asked, quietly, like she already knew the answer, "What happens if we don't stop now?" The next few days were quiet. Too quiet. Her curtains stayed closed, her car unmoved. The courtyard, usually punctuated by her faint music or the smell of coffee, felt abandoned. I tried to tell myself she was busy, that people like her had other lives outside my little corner of it. But every time I passed her door, that silence felt heavier. By the third day, I left a thermos of tea on her doorstep. No note, just warmth waiting to be found. It was still there the next morning, cold, untouched. At work, I caught myself checking my phone too often. No messages. Not even one of her clipped, careful texts. Then, near closing, my coworker mentioned it casually. "Hey, isn't your landlady the one who used to run that small gallery near the bus stop? I heard her son's back in town." I froze. "Son?" "Yeah, guys around my age, maybe older. Said he's helping her with some paperwork." "Nice car." Something tightened in my chest. Not jealousy exactly. More like realization. She'd never told me about him. That night, the light in her apartment was on again. Through the window I saw 2 silhouettes. One of them laughed. A man's voice, low and familiar in the way family voices are. I almost knocked. I almost said something, anything. But I didn't. Instead, I went back to my place and stared at my phone. Half-typed messages piling up like debris. Did I do something wrong? "I miss our walks. Are you okay?" None of them sent. Days passed. I started walking home a different way. Past the grocery, not the courtyard. Past the noise, not the silence. Sometimes, I'd see her outside, talking to him, gesturing, smiling faintly, like she'd put her old self back on, neat and composed. One evening, our eyes met across the street. Just a moment, then she looked away. No wave, no nod, just the soft, deliberate act of pretending. The next day, I found a small envelope slipped under my door. No name, no message, just the spare key I'd used to fix her sink weeks ago. It was lighter than it should have been. Emptier. I held it for a long time before setting it on the counter, next to my sketchbook. I drew that night, not her face, just a door, half open, half closed, a sliver of light breaking through. I didn't feel heartbroken. I felt paused, like life forgot to finish the sentence. Her window light turned off before midnight. Mine stayed on long after. And between us, just a quiet space neither of us seemed brave enough to fill. It was a Thursday evening when I saw her again. She was sitting on the apartment steps, coat drawn close, a paper bag beside her feet. The kind of ordinary sight that shouldn't stop time, but it did. I almost walked past. Then she spoke. "You walk quieter now," she said, like someone trying not to wake the house. I didn't know I was allowed to. She gave a faint smile. "You never needed permission." For a while, neither of us moved. The air between us carried the smell of rain again, sharp and clean, like memory circling back. She looked tired, not in a way that begged for pity, but in the way people look when they've been holding something too long. "I should have told you about my son," she said quietly. "It wasn't intentional. I just didn't want you to see me through his eyes." "I didn't," I said. "I saw you through mine." That made her exhale, a small sound that wasn't quite a laugh. "That's what scared me." She gestured toward the bag. "I made too much soup. Thought I'd bring you some. Old habits." I nodded but didn't reach for it. "You haven't been by in weeks. I needed to remember who I was before you started noticing." Her voice trembled on the word noticing. "And did you?" I asked. She looked at me then, really looked. Almost. The streetlights flickered on, painting soft gold across her face. "I thought you'd moved on," she said. "You didn't text." "I typed things," I admitted. "Never sent them." She nodded like she understood exactly what that meant. "I kept deleting your number. Didn't work." The quiet stretched, heavy but tender. Two people circling a truth they both already knew. Finally, she said, "You shouldn't wait for me." "I'm not," I said. "I'm just here." Something softened in her eyes. The fight in her, whatever pride or fear kept her still, seemed to falter. She reached out, hesitated, then let her hand rest on my forearm. Just that. No grand gesture, no confession, just presence. Her touch was warm, familiar in a way that made my throat tighten. "I don't know what this is," she whispered, "but I don't want to lie about it anymore." "You don't have to," I said. "We don't have to name it." She closed her eyes briefly, as if testing the weight of that freedom. When she opened them again, she smiled, small, tired, but real. "Okay," she said, "just that." And somehow it was enough. She stood then, adjusting her coat, and handed me the paper bag. "Eat while it's warm." I nodded, fingers brushing hers as I took it. That tiny contact, barely there, felt like the most honest thing we'd ever done. It's been 6 months since that night. The courtyard smells different now. Jasmine instead of rain. Someone finally fixed the vending machine. It hums again at odd hours, soft and familiar, like a memory that refuses to fade. She still lives upstairs. I still rent the same unit below hers. We never talked about what we are. We just kept showing up, mornings quiet and easy. Some days, she brings tea to my door before work. Black coffee for her, still too hot to drink, in that chipped blue mug she never throws away. I fix small things for her without being asked. The loose railing, the squeaky hinge, the bulb in the stairwell that keeps dying. She pretends not to notice, but she always leaves something on my counter afterward. A folded napkin. A note that just says 8:47 a.m. The time her car first rolled to a stop beside me. The beginning. We still walk sometimes on weekends. The same route, the same bench by the cracked court. It's less tense now, quieter, but not empty. She talks about reopening her gallery, maybe on a smaller scale. I tell her about my students, the ones who draw too hard on the paper because they think it makes the art mean more. "Do you?" she asks. "Sometimes," I admit. "But it's not the pressure that makes it matter. It's the touch." She smiles at that. A small, private smile. The kind you only earn after the storm has passed. Her son visits now and then. I help him carry boxes up the stairs, and she watches from the window, pretending not to. He knows, I think. Or maybe he doesn't need to. The way she says my name when I leave, steady, unhurried, says enough. There's no secrecy now. Just boundaries drawn with care, not fear. Sometimes I still overthink. Sometimes she still pulls away first. But neither of us runs. That feels like progress. Last night it rained again. Not hard, just enough to send us both to our windows. I saw her light flick on. A few minutes later, a soft knock. "Your brakes," she said, standing in the doorway, holding her umbrella. "They're squeaking again." I laughed. "You testing me?" She shrugged. "Just making sure you can still handle my speed." It wasn't a flirt. Not anymore. It was history, worn, gentle hours. This morning, I woke to find a thermos outside my door. Still warm. I didn't open it right away. I just held it, breathing in the faint scent of tea, listening to the rain fade. Not everything needs to be said to be understood. Some things just stay. Quietly. Between us, that's enough. Did this story stay with you? What kind of quiet, real love stories do you want to hear next?